Karma, thank you. And the number of shootings involving LA police officers is on the rise in 2025. Now, that is in contrast to the city's overall violent crime rate, which continues to drop to some of the lowest levels we've seen in years. NBC4 investigative reporter Eric Leonard joins us live in the newsroom right now with some insight into what's going on here. Eric.
Hi, Colleen. Well, the LAPD says even though there are fewer officers out on patrol making fewer contacts with the public, they say they're confronting more people who are armed with guns. There have already been 25 police shootings so far this year, 5 in the last couple of weeks alone. LA's police chief says he thinks it reflects an overall increase in people's willingness to use violence against officers.
There are fewer violent crimes being committed in the city, and yet we're seeing a greater number of officer-involved shootings, but those shootings are all our officers facing somebody who is, for the most part, armed and assaultive, and they're there to either protect themselves or protect someone from the public. And so as we move forward, certainly we're looking to be able to get answers to these and other questions.
Some of the recent shootings include a gunfight between officers and a man that they say was armed with a handgun in South LA on July 5th. One officer wounded in the leg. That man was struck by police gunfire and treated and arrested. July 10th, officers shot and killed a man during a confrontation in Hyde Park. They say he was armed with a handgun. July 13th, officers shot and wounded a man in downtown LA. They say he was armed with a 2-foot-long machete. And just yesterday, officers shot and killed a man in the Hollenbeck area who was holding what looked like a rifle or a machine gun. It turned out to be an airsoft or BB gun. So, as of this week, LA police officers have been involved in 25 shootings so far in 2025, compared with 18 at this time last year. What's changed? The chief says officers are confronting more people who appear to be armed with guns, 15 so far this year, compared with 10 in all of last year's data, though about half of the guns turn out to be replicas or BB guns rather than actual firearms. The chief told the Board of Police Commissioners today that he's asked for more research into all of this to find out if there are any other common factors behind the increase, which is really significant given that major reduction in violent crime in LA and all around the country. In fact, as of this week, the number of murders in LA is down 30% compared with this time last year. We should point out that none of the internal investigations of these police shootings or the reviews by the district attorney have been done. Often those can take a year or more to complete. One more thing today. We asked the chief about a recent noteworthy disclosure by the police department that one officer was fired for, among other things, engaging in racially biased policing. The information was published by the department in its monthly report on punishment given out to officers who violate the rules, including officers who've been fired. And you can see one entry here shows an officer was terminated for a variety of misconduct. And on the top line there, it says the officer engaged in biased policing based on race. Now, this is something that the department receives hundreds of complaints about each year, but those complaints are rarely validated by the department's internal investigations because it's difficult to find out what an officer was thinking when something happened.
In order to be able to sustain a case of racial profiling, there are elements that need to be met that are very hard to nail down. So without being able to talk about this specific case, my inclination would be to say that there was an admission or there was something that provided the ability for the adjudicator to be able to say ultimately that this should be sustained.
Sustained means that the department believes that the allegation is valid, and one of the reasons the chief is kind of speaking in vague terms there is that California has a very strict police secrecy law. It prevents the chief or police departments from discussing the wrongdoing of officers or naming them, so the public disclosure we showed is sanitized. No one can see which officer was punished or fired or what the incident or discipline stemmed from. I should mention this is the first time I can recall an LAPD officer being punished for this. Live in the newsroom, I'm investigative reporter Eric Leonard, NBC4 News. Back to